All right, I'm gonna get started. Hi, Lisa. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome to Save the Date, your dating survival guide from Coffee Meets Bagel. I'm your host, Daun, and CMB's Chief Dating Officer. Each episode, I invite a dating expert to explore what it takes to go on better dates and ultimately find a great relationship. Today, I have my dream guest with me, Bilyeu. She's the co-founder and president of Impact Theory, a digital media production company focused on empowering content. And she's also the co-founder of a billion-dollar health and nutrition brand, Quest Nutrition. What's amazing is that she co-founded these two amazingly, hugely successful company with her husband, Tom Bilyeu. Lisa, I cannot even begin to imagine the amount of work it takes for you and Tom to work together and maintain a thriving relationship as a husband and wife. I know how difficult that is because I work with my own sister on Coffee Meets Bagel, and sometimes I just want to kill her, right? So you two are truly my relationship role model, and I'm so excited to have you here to share how you and Tom have not only created but continue to maintain this amazingly juicy relationship, because I really want that for everyone here, all the CMB daters out there. I really want that for their lives. So thank you so much for joining.
Girl, I adore you. Thank you so much for having me. Been super excited to do this.
Yay! Okay, so I want to start from the very beginning. I think when we come across somebody who is in a happy relationship, it's hard to imagine that they too were single at some point and struggled with dating, right? And so I really want to know, what was dating like for you before you met Tom?
Yeah, so I had a preconceived notion of what I thought I wanted in a partner. I was brought up a certain way, so depending on what you're shown, what you're given as a child, where you're born, I really do think it shapes what you look for. So for me, I was surrounded by a lot of guys that women were attracted to because they had nice cars or they were really tough, and let's face it, not very nice guys. But it was, it was like the mean boys.
Right.
And so many girls liked the mean boys that I liked the mean boys. And so if they had a nice car, like that, those were all the things that I was looking for. Now, back then, I'm going to show my age, we didn't have online dating. So I'm trying to project, and trust me, I've really thought about this. If I was dating now, would I have done the same things? And the great thing is that my experience has taught me what worked and what didn't. So for instance, I know that you have check boxes, right? What type of person are you looking for?
Right.
If I had done that, I never would have met Tom, ever, because there were certain things where I was like, oh yeah, a guy's got to care about his looks. A guy's got to care about his clothes. A guy's got to care about his car. And then I meet Tom. He doesn't care about his clothes. He doesn't care about his car. He barely does his hair.
Total opposite.
Total opposite. Now, what happened was, on that very first date, because neither of us, so I was in America. I was just here for 2 months. So I'm like, oh, here's this hot guy. I'm never going to end up with him. So I'm just going to be completely me. And I'd never done that before. On past dates. Yeah, on past dates, I was trying to win the job. Right? And instead of trying to win the job, now my mindset is, let them try and win you. Like, you be you, and then see if there's a great electricity. And that's what happened with Tom. I wasn't trying to win him. I wasn't trying to be someone or like put any pressure on, is this going to be my husband? Because I was like, I'm here for 2 months. It's like a great summer fling. And because of that no pressure, because of the no expectations, I allowed space for him to surprise me with things that I didn't think I cared about, but I really did. So for instance, first date, he turns up at my door. He comes in his work clothes. I've spent like 2 hours getting ready, girl. Like, I've done my hair, I've done my makeup, I've like ironed my clothes. And he literally turns up straight from work. So first of all, I'm used to a guy with wearing so much cologne that, you can smell him coming. And he didn't even put cologne on, and he came sweaty from work. So I was like, all right, well, he didn't really make an effort. But so then we walked to his car, and it's this broken down Buick. And so again, going against what I had thought I wanted in a guy. Now we walk up to his broken down Buick. It's trash in the back, like one of those like really old man cars where it looks like he's lived in the car for years. And we walk up to the car, and he opens the door for me. And I was like, this is weird. No guy's ever opened the door for me before.
I know.
And so it was a feeling I never thought I wanted. It was something I never thought I like would be important to me. And here I am going like, wow, he just opened the car door for me. So then we get to the restaurant. Which I didn't realize at the time, he took me to a B restaurant in a strip mall. So
Okay.
it has the B. So I spent 2 hours. I'm in my heels. I'm expected to go to a steak restaurant. Right, like these are all the preconceived notions of how I dated before.
Right.
So then I get to this B restaurant in a freaking strip mall. We sit at the booth. There's a big hole in this. Like it is so freaking beyond comical. And in that moment, girl, we sit down and we start talking. And I was like, he's so engaging. Like he's so articulate. He wants to know about me. He writes poetry. He has an opinion. He's not afraid to tell me, and sorry if this is a little too explicit, but this was the sort of thing that hit me hard. He wasn't afraid to be open about pornography. Like it was all these things that I thought, oh, you can't talk about that. Oh, you shouldn't say that. And he was just him. And I'm like, wow, this is like freaking hitting me on a whole different level. And when I say from that, we ended up staying up till like 4 a.m. just talking. And I was like, there's something here that I've never, ever felt with a human before. And so when I go to think about dating and how we handle it now, it's like there are certain things that I think are super important. You need to absolutely have your core values need to align. And when I say your core values, let's say when I meet someone, if I was like, I really love business. I don't want children. I don't want a family. All I want this. And you meet someone that is like, my core value is having a family. You are so in conflict on those core values. At least you know from the beginning it's gonna take so much hard work, or maybe a convincing of that navigating those values. It's just you're on an uphill battle. So I would say there are certain things that are definitely fundamental that I think you should look for. But open yourself up to things that you thought you would never want, and like allow yourself to feel things instead of putting judgment on stuff.
Right. That is so incredible, because one of the things that really a lot of daters struggle with is this being open-minded about people who are beyond this checklist that we have. And I think a lot of us know that could be limiting. Okay, if I'm looking for, I don't know, like somebody who has PhD and this and that and all that stuff, like it's going to limit my pool. But sometimes it's like really hard to get outside of that box, and we also get stuck with like, you know what, I've done this, like I'm only attracted to this kind of people. Like, how do we get over that? Do you have any tips on how we can get over that? Like for you, Quint, luckily when the circumstances lined up in such a way that you didn't have an expectation, which is awesome. And how do we actually kind of create that?
I've really thought about this, and for me I have non-negotiables. Like I sat down and I said, what are the non-negotiables for me in a relationship? Don't ever cheat on me. That's just a very clear non-negotiable. And don't physically hit me. Like when I look at a partner and I say, what are the things that I will, even now, I've been married to my husband for 18 years, we've been together for 20. He does either of those two, I'm gone. Doesn't mean that wouldn't freaking break my heart. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't be an absolute mess. I would, but I have non-negotiables. So I would say to someone, what are your non-negotiables? Is it, I want a family. Like all I want is children. And that is a non-negotiable for me. Then I would just say, own it. Be proud that you understand and you know your non-negotiable. That way, when you meet someone, you don't want to find yourself in a position where something of your non-negotiable is now like, well, maybe, and because what ends up happening is 10 years down the line, you start freaking resenting them for that one thing that you actually didn't stay strong with down the line. So like, now it depends on what that is for you. And at the same note, it's like for me, I actually did think once upon a time my non-negotiable was children, and here I am. I'm the one that has decided not to have children. So even in your non-negotiable, right, I'm like contradicting myself on that. Like, but still, you don't know who you're going to be in 10 years. Who do you want to be in 20 years? And I think finding a partner that can communicate, that thinks like you. So Tom and I, it's not that we always agree. We are polar opposites on some things. But one thing that we do agree on is our relationship is the priority, and communication, no matter how hard it is to say something to someone, we have both agreed that saying the hard thing is a must in our relationship. Now imagine we have different values. Now imagine I have the belief of, look, I'm always going to tell you the hard thing. Even if you don't agree, I'm always going to be honest with you. And you have your partner that is so insecure, they can't hear the truth. That's a freaking collision of values. How the hell do you communicate with someone? So you have to have an agreement. You have to look for the types of people that are going to be open to communicate. And it will take time. It's not going to be a one day and then you know it all, right? It's going to be a test. Okay, when I'm honest with them about their shirt, right? Like, pick something small. It doesn't have to be dramatic, right? On the third date, if you feel like you've adopted some camaraderie with them and you're like, their shirt is hideous, and you're like, I kind of want to tell them, like, see how they handle it. Like, oh my God. And if it was me, I'd say, oh my God, you know what, you're so freaking hot, but you may want to consider the shirt. Like, I would do it in a fun way, but then see how they respond. Because if someone automatically goes, I can't believe they said that was so offensive, well, now you know how they're going to react down the line when you bring up something really serious in your relationship. So testing the ground, seeing what you think makes for a good relationship. And I'm not the person to tell you what is important in your relationship. I can only tell you what I have found very important in mine. Saying the hard things, even if you know you're going to hurt your partner's feelings. That's important. But coming up with a way to do it with grace. Like, I love you so much, but this thing is a problem. And then seeing how people handle things like trust, right? This is a big thing. Tell someone a little secret. This is what I would do. Tell someone a little secret. Then when you're in a big argument, do they use it against you? That just tells you who they are as a human being. So there's little things that I would do. Like, the reason why Tom and I have been able to last so long is we communicate. And there are things like, if I'm insecure about something and I tell him, he's never once, not once in 20 freaking years, has he ever used an insecurity of mine or a secret of mine in a moment when he could. He's never once used it. So I don't just say, oh, well, that's been 20 years. It's like, no, every time he's done it, he's seen an opportunity where he could, and vice versa, right? I don't do the same. So when you start to go in the dating pool and you start to date people, it's a beautiful opportunity to see how they react and own it as well, right? Okay, this person has expectations of me. Is that something I'm willing to give? Tom and I meet each other in the middle all the time. And we have very polar opposite views sometimes. So can you, on, month number 2, when you have an argument, how do you both handle it? Are you respectful? Like, these are all types of things that I would start to look for as I date someone to go, are they the one?
Right. I so many things here. I want to literally take notes down myself. Like, one is the like having, it's so clear to me. You have such a clear idea of what your non-negotiables are. And I think that's kind of like a shift from what I think a lot of daters are used to, which is like, okay, write down all the stuff that you want, and then it kind of ends up being a checklist. But I think one other methodology that we could use is come up with a non-negotiable and just be really clear on it. And the rest, let's just be open, right? Like, that will give you opportunity to meet and make a relationship like yours and Tom possible, because if you stuck to the checklist, it clearly wasn't going to work, right? So that's number one. And then, okay, so all the non-negotiables, it's all different for us, based on our personal values. But I think some of the things that you mentioned are really, really great one. And obviously it's working so well for you. And so things like, okay, you have to be able to say the hard things, prioritize relationship. I think those two are really important, because I can see in the long run, when you're with somebody for 10, 20 years, like you said, we're going to evolve and change, right? You wanted kids, but now you don't want kids. Those things are changing. And if you don't have those two, whatever happens, relationship is my priority. And whatever happens, I'm going to communicate the hard things with grace, like you said, and I'm going to learn how to do that. If you know how to do those two things, I can see how even if things change, you can learn how to work, still be in love and work effectively together. So I love that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
Okay. So the other thing is, you mentioned that as you kind of go along, you're kind of collecting data, right? Okay, so you tell them a secret, right? Not intentionally, but that's kind of what you're doing. Yeah, and you know, one time when we were on the show together, there was a question that came on like, well, how do you know if somebody's the one? And you and I talked about, well, we don't really believe in the one concept. However, you do have to make a decision to stay committed to a partner, right? If a monogamous long-term relationship is what you want, you are committing yourself to a partner. And I think a lot of daters today, in today's world with dating apps, and it seems like there's a lot of options out there. And so sometimes we have a hard time committing, like, oh, well, what if there's someone out there? Maybe I should explore more. And so I'm wondering at what point you kind of decided, like, you know what? No, I don't need to explore more.
Yeah. So the truth is there's 7 billion people out there. So to think that you happen to have crossed paths with the person that is going to be your only, like, it's actually not as powerful to me as saying there's 7 billion people out there. I can keep looking, but I choose you. Like that, like people, like initially people was like, no, it has to be the one. But no, like I actually think we're robbing ourselves of the beauty of deciding. Yes, there's like, Tom, babe, I love you so much, but to think that I'm the prettiest person in the world and you only have eyes for me is BS. And to think that you think that there's no other handsome man out there that's better looking than you is BS. So it's not like we hold on to I'm the apple of his eye and I'm the, like, no, I actually think it's more romantic to say, regardless, even though there's people prettier, smarter, more emotionally, better EQ, whatever, like all these things, even though there are people out there that are better than me and better than him, we still choose each other. And so to me, that is beautiful. And it just comes down to, at what point do you choose? Right? If there's something missing, if there's something where you're like, God, I have these butterflies every time I see him, but I can't freaking have a conversation with him. All right, well, like, you kind of know, right? Yes, yeah. And depending on what your value system is, if it's, I want an all-round relationship, because let me also say, some people just want safety. And they're like, I just want someone to be able to have, like, the butterflies is actually secondary. Cool. Like, I am not the person to judge on whatever you decide you want in a partner, but you need to know what you want in a partner, and then you need to go after it and look for it. So I think that that's super important. So with Tom, it wasn't that we had a perfect relationship in the first few months. Like, no, not at all. Like, there were issues. There were, like, he did really weird things. Like, he questioned my religious beliefs. I'd never met anyone in the world to ever ask me why I believed in God. And here was this American dude on, like, our second date, and he's like, so why do you believe in God? And to me, my belief system was, oh my God, you can't ask someone that, right? Like, but we just come from different worlds. But because my values weren't built into that, I was like, this is intriguing that he asked me, why do I believe in God? And so I didn't run away. So it's like, how do you use the things that are your non-negotiables? You, like, kind of let them know as close to as, soon as possible when you start dating. But in regards to, should I look for someone else? To me, even asking that question means there's something that is not entirely satisfactory in your current relationship. And then you say, is it worth it? Because again, no one could judge or put value except you. If you're saying, well, look, I really do want someone with butterflies, and this guy, he's so lovely, or woman, this person is so lovely, they're so kind, we have so much fun, but I don't feel those butterflies. Okay, well, is it important to you to have those butterflies? And what if in 10 years you don't find someone, you don't have the butterflies, and now you don't have someone that you have this maybe emotional connection with? Would you regret it? And I always do that. Like, would I regret it? And then I would go back to no. Because for me, again, passing no judgment on anyone else, for me, if I'm going to dedicate my life to it, relationships aren't freaking easy. And it means that sometimes I put my husband before my business. I put my husband before myself. If I'm going to do that, you better believe I want someone that is going to light me on fire, in my gut, in my, give me the butterflies, but also mentally, I want to be challenged. I don't want a yes person. Like all these things that I have discovered that I want in a partner.
Right.
It starts to unveil. And the gut, guys, the gut is powerful. Don't ignore it. It's trying to tell you something. Don't feel bad about it, but say, what is my gut trying to tell me? And use it as a piece of information. Like you said, I love collecting data. I use that as a data point, right? And I'm like, that's interesting. When I date this guy who doesn't give me butterflies, my gut's telling me this doesn't feel right. That's a data point to say, okay, if you've done that 3 times, then clearly having butterflies is important to you. So I use the data as an analysis to come up with a conclusion. I then use the conclusion to then act in accordance.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I 100% agree with you. Like it is a data point. It's your body trying to tell you something. And I think sometimes because we want certain outcome, I mean, if you're with somebody and you're having these kind of questions, it's going to be such a hassle to have to answer that or even maybe decide to leave it. And so I think sometimes we just kind of question ourselves. But I think it's so important you stay true to what your body is telling you, and especially if it's kind of happening repeatedly. And the fact that if you're in a relationship, you're questioning, like, should I be exploring more? That is a data point. Like, why? Like,
yeah.
Would you say, like, with Tom, like, I mean, it's an important decision choosing who you're going to marry or who you're going to be main partnership with. Like, but it wasn't perfect. It's not like you guys were not arguing or anything. But I'm guessing it was an easy decision because it felt right, like in your gut.
Yes, but there were definitely issues, where it's like, okay, I love this man. He gives me butterflies. He challenges me. He's something like, there's all these amazing, incredible things of why I really want to marry him. But there also are this huge multiple hands. I mean, I love the man, right? But no one's perfect. It's like there are all these issues that we need to address. And so the question is, are you both willing to address them together and do the work? And I think that that's a commitment you need to say. Not, I'm perfect. I'm so freaking flawed, girl. Like, you have no idea. So, but I know I'm flawed and I don't beat myself up over it, but I go, okay, I'm always going to work to get better. I know that about myself. Is Tom always willing to work and get better? Because that's another thing on relationships. I think one of the biggest reasons why Tom and I work is we're both willing to look at ourselves. Instead of pointing the finger, it's literally like, okay, where's my ownership in this? We keep having this argument. It must be partly me. Like, to just keep blaming him. And when you both want that, when you both have the desire, the commitment to say, I'm willing to do the hard work. I'm willing to look at myself. I'm willing to say the hard thing. Then, when something comes up, you're both aligned in how to deal with it. But if one person just wants to protect their ego, right? Like, every time you argue with me, I feel shitty about myself. And now all I need is for you to say sorry. And you've got someone else that has a growth mindset that is like, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to do better. Like, now you've got a collision of values, right? Kind of going back to, that was the very first thing I said when you start dating. Are your values aligned? Because that will come into play, because you need both parties to work on themselves as well as work on the relationship. And that's what Tom and I do. So when I say I was in love with him, I had all the butterflies, all of that is honestly, it's phases. Like, if you do a brain scan, I think we actually spoke about this last time. If you do a brain scan of someone who has just met someone and is in love, it looks like, and you put next to it an actual brain scan, you put next to it someone that took cocaine. It looks identical. Crazy. Now, I've been married to my husband for 18 years. I love him more today than I've ever loved him. But if you take my brain scan, it doesn't look like I've taken cocaine, right? Because it was a phase. And so that's the other thing, is understanding the phases. Because me and my husband, we want to be together until we're into our 100 years old. So what are you valuing in the other person? If all you're valuing is their looks, if all they're valuing is your looks, well, you may as well quit right now, because one day you will be a bag of bones. Period. You'll be a bag of bones. You're going to be, if everything goes well, right? You're in your 90s and you're droopy. It's like, I really hope I get there, but I want to get there with someone that loves me more for my look, for more than just my looks. So that's another thing. It's like, okay, well, do you both agree on that? Are you both aligned on the fact that you're going to live till you're 90 in your bag of wrinkles? If you do, then you have to enjoy each phase as you go. So getting married, that like beauty, oh my God, you're like, I got a ring on my finger. Like, it was like the biggest news ever. Like, but that was a phase. Now, what happens when that stops? What happens a year later, 2 years later, when now your chemicals are changing? What happens when, the real shit really happens, where it's like your partner loses their job, or, your partner starts to feel really badly and goes through depression? Like, how do you show up for them? Knowing who they are fundamentally, knowing that they're in it, knowing that you have agreements to always be honest and help each other no matter what, with the growth mindset, means you can keep going. But if you're not freaking aligned, what if you, like, Like, what if Tom doesn't have a growth mindset? And the truth is that biologically, men are driven to be attracted to women around 21 years old because they're the most fertile. So it's like, I don't take that personally, but what happens if when I'm 50, right? If my husband has the mentality and he doesn't have a growth mindset, he won't understand that, I guess like maybe he'll feel guilty about looking at 21 years. I don't know, but like understanding biology, understanding how we work, understanding phases, so that, because I have noticed a lot of people hold on to a phase. And because that phase is over, they start to think, well, is there something wrong with my relationship?
Yeah.
But Tom and I, literally, we say these words, we're in a new phase now. Like we actually say that to each other so that we almost agree. Yes, we're in a new phase. And if someone misses something from the old phase, bring it up and go, you know what, babe, I really miss it where you would just like throw me on the sofa. Oh, I just freaking say it. Like they're not going to, no one's going to be able to guess. But that's why I keep coming back to communication, so that you're not making a decision of your partner for life only based on emotion, because that will change 100%.
Right. So you have to feel, I mean, again, not perfect, kind of going back to the question of like, how do you commit? Like, it's not a lack of issue. It's not perfection, but you have to feel confident that whatever happens, you're going to be able to navigate together through communication and the commitment and et cetera, is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. I actually posted something fairly recently. I can't remember the quote exactly, but it was something like, don't listen to someone saying sorry, watch their actions after the fact. And that's what it comes back to, right? When Tom and I have an argument, we break it down. We say, well, we offended each other, how we hurt each other. And there are certain words, right, that like, maybe I can't even think of something off the top of my head, but let's say Tom says a word and it triggers me. Now, that word may not trigger him, but it does me. I have to be able to articulate to him, hey, when you say this word, it triggers me. And we have to be able to communicate and work through it together and see the next time, does he use that word or not? Now, I've seen in my husband, I'm just trying to think of a word off my head, like, oh, you're stupid. He's never said that to me. Guys, he's never called me stupid. But I just want to say, imagine he called me stupid once, right? Like, you're so stupid. Like, it can be lighthearted. Now, imagine that triggers me, because one of my triggers actually is someone looking down on me. So I have said to him, babe, I know you don't mean it, but when you use this word, it makes me feel like this. Now, the next time you go to argue and maybe he goes to say it, do you see him try not to say it? Do you see him like struggling to find another word because he has heard that word hurts me? Everything comes in the action. It's not about you hurt my feelings now. Okay, cool. If you can acknowledge that, amazing. But what are we, not just you, what are we going to do differently so that we don't end up here again? And are you willing to meet me in the middle and do the work? And you start to see that over time, girl, you start to see if someone says sorry and they keep repeating it, they're not freaking sorry. They're just saying it to make the situation feel better.
Yeah, totally.
And that's so important. And so that's the thing, is like, even if you have the romantic star and the love and the passion and stuff like that, it does need to go beyond that. And that becomes, to me, the great time in the dating phase. Like, test this stuff out, right? Like, see how they're going to react. And here's the thing, they may not do well. So you tell them, they may keep falling. Are they trying?
Right.
That's it. I'm not even judging the results right now. Yeah. I'm just like, so Tom, not this word, but like, he would just be like, oh, you're being so stupid. Oh God, no, sorry, I don't mean to use that word. Right? That means he's trying. It doesn't mean he's succeeded, but as long as you show each other that you're both willing to try, that's where now you can go, oh, we're not on this isn't a tennis match and we're on opposing sides of the net. This is a doubles match and we're on the same side of the net with the same goal. Working together to win the cup, right? So like, that's how we approach things.
Right. I love that. And again, like, love what you said about not holding them to an immediate outcome. Like, it takes time for anyone to change, and when you see somebody trying, that's kind of what's really important. I love that. I want to go back to what you said in the very, very beginning, which when you were talking about how you met Tom, and you said you were in a state where there was no pressure, expectation, so you were kind of like, okay, come and impress me, which I think is a fantastic attitude and very confident one. And this confidence in dating is a big topic among daters because, dating it takes risk and it means vulnerability. And when you're vulnerable, like you feel insecure. I think that's very, very natural. And that makes it really hard for you to show up as yourself. And you are such great at mind building and how do we actually build confidence? So could we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't, God, how can I put it? So when I don't judge myself. So when let me start again. I actually didn't have massive confidence back then. So even in saying it, it wasn't like me being cocky. It was kind of like, I got nothing to lose. Like, it was more that, where it's like, I'm not gonna, like, yes, I'm gonna dress up because I feel good when I dress up, but I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not. Like, I just didn't think that there was much risk there. So it actually wasn't out of confidence. It was just the situation. But the truth is that now that I have built my confidence over time, it's when I interview people for jobs, I sit there and I'm like, look, how much of your life are you going to spend at work? A lot. How much time are you going to spend with me? A lot. Okay, so you coming in for the job, honestly, there's no amount of money that I can pay you that's going to make you love your job if you don't like me and the company and what we stand for. There's no amount. So I go, you should be interviewing me. So now I'm interviewing someone for a hire that I'm doing. But one of the first thing I say to them is, you need to be interviewing me. You need to be looking at, do you want to work here? Do you want to be around me? Like, that is so freaking important. And it has to go both ways. So even if you got guys that are listening, even if you don't have the confidence, I get it. But what I would do is I would reframe my mind in saying, I am looking for someone, and if this is true, I am looking for someone to be with for the rest of my life. Do I want to be with somebody who isn't, who I don't like being around? Like, instead of trying to win the job, like I said, like, don't worry about whether they're going to like you or not. Do you like them? Like, right? Like, we so much go into like, I hope they like me. I hope, because we want to be accepted. And I get that. I freaking get the fact that we want to be accepted, but that's what we go into. I'm going to go into this date, and this is exactly how I was. I'm going to go into this date wanting to win the job, to be accepted. And I think it's just a shift of mindset. It doesn't, to me, it's not actually about confidence. It's about shifting that mindset and going, do I want to be around this person for the rest of my life? If that's what you're looking for in the relationship, right? And now when you go into it, anytime that you're like maybe insecure, I would just I would literally repeat it as a mantra. And I'm all about mantras, repeating, freaking write it on a Post-it note, guys, put it in your car as you're driving to the date. Like, I would force myself, because if my self-confidence isn't big right now, if I'm like really lacking confidence and if I'm really nervous about things, like, I would go, I know this about me. How do I overcome it? And so I would put a Post-it note on my steering wheel as I'm driving to the date. And I would, like, every time I come to a stoplight, I would just look down. I'm like, okay, what do I have to remind myself? What do I have to remind myself? keep it in your purse or in your pocket. And if you're starting to feel that insecurity or that confidence, excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, pull out your freaking Post-it note, and remind yourself that you're there to see if you want to be with them. That's how I would do it. But it wouldn't just come naturally. So I don't want people to kind of look at me and go, oh, well, it's okay for you because you're confident. It's like, no, you're missing the point. I have built things like this, little tactics, to be able to overcome the fact that I'm not confident at all. And in doing that, it has built my confidence over time. I would also listen to music. I'd be like, every time I'm feeling insecure in front of this date, I know that doesn't serve me. I know that that's not a good place to be when I'm on a date. I would be like, all right, what's your go-to song, Lisa? And I would put my song in my phone, and I would literally have my headphones ready. And if in a moment I don't feel confident, whether it's getting, I would sit in my car and I would just sing my heart out, whatever song that is, like the Rocky song or whatever the song that gets you motivated, sing it and then walk into the date. Or have it ready on your phone, have your earpods ready. And if you're on the date and you're starting to feel insecure again, tell yourself, all right, I've told myself when I'm starting to feel X, Y, and Z, I'm going to excuse myself. Okay, I've excused myself. What did I tell myself I was going to do? Okay, I told myself I was going to pull out my Post-it note, and I told myself I'm going to listen to that song, right? Like, all these little tactics I use, and that is what has allowed me to build my confidence
Wow.
and show up. But
Wow.
it's steps. So
Yeah.
remind yourself, reframe, tell yourself that you're not looking to be accepted by them. And I understand it's way more difficult than that, but these
Yeah.
are little tips that hopefully people can use to actually
Yeah.
get over it and not let them hold them back.
Right. I laughed because somebody was like, do karaoke. That's a great way.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, and in fact, maybe that's the right answer. I actually love that, right? Like maybe you choose a place where you feel more comfortable because maybe you've been there before, right? Like maybe it's like, oh, I actually feel very relaxed here. Okay, we'll go to that place.
Right.
Maybe it's like, hey, karaoke breaks the ice and I freaking love karaoke. Okay, now someone who's insecure is going to say, but what if they don't like karaoke? Do you want to, if karaoke is your jam, do you want to date someone that doesn't like karaoke? Like, but seriously, right? Like that was the thing with Tom. Like, I love Christmas. I'm like the biggest Christmas buff. And when I
Oh.
told Tom, I used to get made fun of it because I'm so obsessed with Christmas, you have no idea. I actually like I've got Christmas sweatpants on because I couldn't go a day, even on this interview, without wearing something Christmassy. That's how much I love Christmas. And when I met Tom, he turned to me on that first day and he's like, yeah, I've got to admit, no one loves Christmas more than I do. And I was like, oh my God, what? And I was like, no one loves Christmas more than I do. And he's like, all right, bring it on. What you got? Like, and in that moment, I was like, I've just had all these people my entire life. Like, I was trying to hide that part of me because I thought it was silly, even though I do love Christmas. And I've just met someone, a man who wants to challenge how much love I have for Christmas. I was like, this is right. Like those little things about, does someone make fun of you or do they like love that part about you? All of these things while you're dating, you can see. And so that's when I was like, all right. My little notebook, right? Like, he didn't make fun of the fact that I love Christmas. I told him I draw. Most people were just like, okay, cool, don't like. He was like, wait, you draw? Show me your artwork, right? So little things like this where I'm like, I wasn't necessarily completely owning who I was, but then when I was saying little things like that, he was so embracive.
Right.
So that's the point. Is that no matter what that little weird thing is, if it's freaking karaoke, that's even a better way to see if the date is that your type of person.
Right.
Because someone that's, let's face it, if you've been in a relationship for a year, 2 years, and you say to your partner, I'm going to go do karaoke, and all they do is moan, make fun of it, you know, well, hang on a minute, you could have actually attested that on your first date and know, okay, he's the type of person or she's the type of person that's going to make fun of me for doing this.
Right.
Flag.
Yeah. I love, thank you so much for sharing about the fact that, you know, you were not confident from the very beginning. I think kind of to the earlier point that I made, when we meet somebody who's like, seems so confident, it's hard to imagine that they too had a time when, and still probably do have moments where they don't feel confident. And it really, you have to make the effort to build it. It's not going to just come kind of magically appear. So I think that's a really important point for, I want the daters to know, because I know a lot of us feel insecure when it comes to dating, and there are insecure moments. And there are things that you can do, like all the stuff that you shared, you almost can think of it as a hack, right? Like Post-its. Like sometimes before I went on dates, I used to actually just look at myself in the mirror and like almost talk to myself, like, wow, Dawn, you look so great. Like, even if sometimes I don't feel that way, when I say it, I feel it. And eventually, and you know, sometimes it may not work, but I think eventually kind of builds that, and you'll get there. You know, sometimes it just takes time, and I think it's an important point for people to know. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, of course.
The other thing, the one unique thing about you and Tom that I really wanted to ask you about is, I know that you and Tom decided not to have kids, which you talk about a lot, which I think is great, because there's so much momentum and pressure in today's world to have kids. And I know that can be a big point of anxiety for a lot of daters out there, especially women, because they're like, oh my God, I need to have kids, and biological clock ticking and whatnot. So is there anything you could share? Well, first of all, like, I would love to hear more about that decision, how you made that decision, and then also just tips you can share with those daters who are feeling the pressure to like make certain things happen by certain time because of this.
Yeah. So I had the belief system. This is why I was saying earlier, like, I kind of contradicted myself because I really thought I wanted kids. Like, I was like, I was brought up Greek Orthodox, and that basically meant from the time you're 2 years old, you're being told you need to learn how to cook. You need to make sure that you're a good cook for your husband. Hey, do you know how to iron? Like, all these things. I was kind of trained as a kid. So I did want children, and I had said, like, I want 2 or 4. I don't know why, but I was like, I want 2 or 4. And Tom, when I first met him, because the first date, neither of us thought it was serious, and I asked him, oh, do you think about marriage, blah, blah. He was like, I don't really care either way, marriage, kids, whatever. Now, if I had been solid on, like, oh my, I'm dating to get married, I probably just would have dismissed him in that moment, right? Because I'm like, oh, he doesn't even know. So that's why I'm saying you almost sometimes have to be a little fluid. But at the same time, we then discussed it. So once we started getting married, I thought it was very important. So I actually said to him, when he proposed, I was like, I really want children. And I know that you said you're not even sure. So this is important to me. And so we had that almost agreement. He was like, okay, yes, I absolutely understand. Like, I do want a family. The idea of kids with you. He was like, when I was single before I met you, I didn't really give a shit whether I got married or if I had kids. But he's like, now with you having a little Lisa, he's like, babe, I would love that. So we decided, okay. So we went into the marriage thinking we were going to have kids. Now, then we went also into at what point. So I was very young at the time. So my biological clock, that wasn't a concern of mine. It was almost the opposite. I was 22 when I got married. So it was like, so Tom immediately said, and again, leave nothing to chance, leave nothing to being unsaid. Tom actually said, once we marry, I know you want children, but I want at least, I think he said 3 years of just being with my wife. He's like, I want to build a relationship with you. We're going to be living together. We're moving to America, like all these things. So we had laid all of that out before we even got married. So then after the year 3, it becomes, when are we having kids? And so we would sit down and discuss that. Now, there becomes little nuances, but it's like what I knew about Tom when I first met him, even now, he's very ambitious. And so I fell in love with his ambition. So when we started to talk about kids after year 3, I was a stay-at-home wife. I was taking care of him, and I was cooking for him, and I was putting clothes out for him. I thought it would be temporary, but it ended up being 8 years of me staying at home, which is a whole other story. But I sat down with him and I said, I want kids. And he's like, okay, we'll have to wait, we'll wait 3 years. What does that look like? And then when the 3-year mark came, I said, okay, like, hey, we're going to have kids yet. And he was on a path to trying to be successful to earn enough money so that we could make our own films. Again, whole side tangent. So he said, actually, babe, I want another year. Like, I don't actually want children now. So we had to talk through it. And his thing is, I've really done a great job of building equity in this company. If I give up now. And so we started to talk through, and I was like, you know what? I should give a little here on this timeline because I know he's ambitious. I married an ambitious man. And so for me to now go, oh, no, I only allowed you to have ambition for 3 years. You got to stop that now. Now I'm not a good partner, and I'm not, 50-50. It's like, I would want him to respect me, and he would want me to respect him. So anyway, that was a kind of a long way of saying it, is that over time we just kept pushing it off. We kept pushing off kids, and I was like, okay, my biological clock isn't a big thing for me right now. I'm still young. So we kept pushing it. And then my husband comes home one day. Him and his business partners want to start a small company of protein bars. And I was a stay-at-home wife. So they're like, hey, do you mind helping out? Well, as you know that story, and I start shipping bars on my living room floor. That company grew 57,000%. And within 2 years, I ended up running the entire shipping department and dealing with $80 million of inventory. And, but it forced me to go from being at home, just waiting to be waiting to be a mother, to being thrust into a business life. Now, this business life ended up showing me things about me I didn't realize. I can learn, I can get better, I can get more confident, I can challenge people, and I can learn, and I can grow. And I'm seeing all these results, hearing people, having people reach out saying, you've saved my life because of your protein bar. Like all of that, I started to reframe who I was, what I wanted. And over time, I started to think, I don't know if I want children anymore. And that's where it comes in and going, What do I know about my husband? We've agreed to always be honest with each other. What do I know about what else have we agreed? Our communication is always going to be our priority. What do I know about my husband? He wants for my happiness. So we sat down and I said, look, I really want to talk to you. I love you. I still want to, you know, support you as emotionally as a wife, but I no longer want to put your clothes out. I no longer want to cook for you. And I don't think I want children, but I need you to know I love you. So not taking care of you isn't because I don't care. It's because I found this other thing that is pulling my heart that I never even thought was possible. And using certain languages, using, babe, this is making me so happy. Like, it's important to bring them in versus this is me, you're going to have to accept it. But we had built all the foundation, right? We built it from our initial first date, from, you know, those tests that we were talking about before, all these data points that I had known, and he had proved of what type of husband he is. And so when it came to that, I did say, well, let's talk about it. How are you feeling? Do you need to mourn it? Like, do you not like what I'm saying? I gave him space to be honest. And in that discussion, he's like, babe, if you don't want kids, of course, like I will support you. And he's like, I actually understand. Because he's like, as an ambitious man, I don't want to stay home with the kids. He was like, I don't want to. So to expect that of you just because you're a woman is terrible of me. That's not a good husband. So you see, like, we kind of really talk through it about.
Right.
And then I said, how is it affecting you? Like, I need you to be honest. And he's like, well, babe, who wouldn't want their clothes put out for them? And who wouldn't want their bloody lunch cake? Like, of course I want that, right? So, but I don't want it as a detriment to your happiness.
Right,
so
right.
How together can we now shift our life, that we thought we were going to have this life, and together we shift it into this. And he said, maybe you can give me, you know, I need to mourn it. So I was like, all right, babe, what I'll do is I'll put clothes out for you for the next week, but after a week, I'm going to stop. But then I'll still carry on your lunch, but then I'm going to do that for another 2 weeks, and then I'm going to stop. And then on the weekend, I'm going to cook for you because I want to feel like an amazing wife. And I choose to cook for you on the weekend. And so we just came up with a plan. And so I know that was very long-winded, but the point being, communication starts from day one. Set your partner up. Don't lie. Like, I honestly, to the point, I don't lie to Tom, even to the point, if I've forgotten something that's like, he asked me to put his Coke in the fridge, let's say, and he's like, do you mind doing it now because I really want it cold? I said, no, I don't mind. And then I forget. The fact that I forgot, I'm like, oh God, I've let him down. So I'll be like, babe, I know I'm going to own it. I didn't put your Coke in the fridge. Like, that's how silly we get sometimes. And not out of like fear of, are they going to find out? It's just, we've built 20 years of being so transparent no matter what, that now we comfortably are able to say to each other the truth. But it takes time to build that. And that's the beauty of dating, guys. Like, that is the beauty of dating, is that you're able to test these things to see how people respond. Right? It gives you, and I think we're, on dating, we've become very fragile. We try to win the job, right? As I was saying earlier, we try to win the job. And then we have such a dream or a vision of what being married is going to be, that now we just want the wedding. Never mind the marriage. All we're focusing on is the wedding day. But let's face it, that's 24 hours. Your marriage hopefully lasts for the next 100 years. So Tom and I really do talk about building those building blocks from the beginning, testing, iterating, trying things out. But it all comes back to literally full circle, us both committing and making that commitment from the start together.
What's really inspiring is that, you know, that was a dramatic shift on your part, right? Like, your identity and what you wanted, like, from where you guys started. And even that dramatic change, you were able to work through it through this super transparent communication. Again, done gracefully. Like, you were really making sure that he still knew that you loved him very much and that you cared about him, and you came up with a transition plan. But like, I mean, I've been with my partner for 3 years, and that's actually been the longest time I've been with anyone. And so, you know, today, like, I'm learning so much. I've learned so much about what it actually takes to have a happy relationship for like 18 years and still going on. And, you know, the fact that you actually love him, you know, ever more, the most, even more so than when you guys first met, is like really, really saying something about the type of relationship that you built. Oh my God, I'm looking at the time. I'm supposed to actually go and ask, address people's questions, and because I had so many questions that I wanted to ask, I don't have time for that.
And I'm sorry, I don't give short answers either. I apologize, Del.
So I'm gonna just ask one question, guys. I apologize, but hopefully all the conversations was really helpful to you. So this is a question that I collected before the show, and oh yeah, so this question I thought was really good. How do I not get emotionally attached to someone so quickly? So you and I talked about the need to really find out little by little who this person really is and build trust along the way. So that takes time, right? Dating takes time, and it's hard to take time to really get to know someone objectively when you're so emotionally attached so quickly. This is from @roro.ck.
Yeah. Ooh, the question really isn't how do I not? I think the question I more have for them is why is that bad for you? Right? Like what has happened? Because clearly this is from an inexperienced person, right? I've given emotionally over too soon. And what? They abused it. They used it, they took it for granted. Like, what is that thing of why you think that's bad? Because here's the thing. After Tom and I went on our first date, we barely left each other's sides. We were completely emotionally entangled in each other after that first date. So I don't necessarily think of it as a bad thing unless it has caused you harm in the past. And if it's caused you harm in the past, how has it caused you harm? Like, I'm so a person of, I can't control other people. I can't control how they show up. I can control how I show up. So let's say I give it over emotionally to someone and they've abused it in a certain way. I go, okay, what is the signs that I can notice next time? Or say, is this something maybe I shouldn't give emotionally over too soon? That's clearly the conclusion she's come to. But I would say, like, why? What did they do in order to have abused that in the first place? Because I actually don't know if just shutting off emotionally at the beginning is a good idea. Like, that is really, it really served me in my relationship. So I don't want to give a kind of a generic answer like, no, you need to get to know them first and you need to hold back. And like, maybe, yes, you do need to hold back certain things. Like, I get it. There's certain secrets that, again, are going to come out over time because you want to give them a little, see how they respond, give them a little secret, see how they respond. But if it's like an emotional and like, is it that you get there too quickly and it's always before they do? And so now I feel like I'm the needy one. Again, I don't want to give a generic answer because I need a little more context. But I would start to assess. I would start to go, why am I even asking this question? What happened in the past that I actually feel like I haven't gotten over yet? Okay, what would I do differently? That's something I do a lot of the time. Like, I think of it as a screenplay. All right, this is a screenplay that happened. Now I'm the editor. I'm the author of my own life. I can go in, I can type a different dialogue. What would I do differently? How would I rewrite the script next time? And I would test and I would go back into it because, again, I don't necessarily think just shutting your emotions off is the right answer.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. It really depends on you. And the fact that she or he is asking this question is, I guess, tells us like, okay, so maybe in the past, maybe they do feel like they attach themselves too fast and maybe to their own detriment. And so like assessing, like it's not necessarily a bad thing, and like making sure that it's there's no rule here, and like even if you go fast, sometimes that's good. Like you in Tom's case, I think that's a really important note. If they do, one thing that came to me is if they do feel like that a lot of times they're the ones who are going too fast and it's not really doing them good. I do think it's good to take time. Like sometimes I think this may be controversial, like going too fast, like physically, I think gets us like biologically, we just kind of become emotionally attached really quickly. So that's one thing that I thought about. If you find yourself kind of not wanting to do that, that's one thing that you this person can consider. Okay, one more question. Sometimes we get triggered in a relationship. How can we still keep connected with our partner when we're triggered?
Oh, yeah. So this comes with practice. You're never going to freaking get it on day one. So my thing is always starting with yourself. Before you even approach your partner triggering you, you got to understand and know exactly what your triggers are. So that's going to take assessment. You may not know now. You may go, every time someone says, like, you may not actually realize what your triggers are. So I start from there. Like, okay, every time, someone says X, Y, and Z, it's like, I always find myself defending myself. Maybe that's a trigger. And then I go, why is that a trigger? Did something happen when I was a child that made me feel inferior? So going back, I actually said it earlier, right? One of my triggers is someone talking down to me. Why? Because I'm mildly dyslexic. And as a kid, I would be made fun of in school if I got my B's and my D's mixed up and my G's and my J's. I also grew up in a family where my brother and my older sister were naturally had a higher IQ than I did. So as a child, so I've identified, I know exactly why I get triggered, and I understand it's a freaking trigger from childhood. So I've identified my trigger. I know it's me. I know it's actually not rational, but it's still a trigger. So I don't judge myself for the trigger. But what I do now is I tell my husband, hey babe, every time, so you know, I have a trigger. It's when people talk down on me. I'm working on it. I don't think those are good. I don't think we should just go, cool, I'm triggered and this is who I am and you have to accept it. That's not me. I'm a growth mindset person. I'm like, I don't accept that from myself. I'm working on my triggers. But right now, while I'm working on the trigger, I get stung and I get triggered when you say something that may appear to be looking down. And the chances are you're still going to find yourself in a situation where they accidentally say something. Then I go, what do I know about my husband? I know he loves me. Do I think he wants to trigger me? No. Why? Because he's proven it time and time again. So he's got the proof of it. Okay, if I know that and he's still triggering me, how do I now communicate more? And I'll be like, babe, remember how I said that I get triggered by this? You literally just said it. And he'll be like, well, what the hell? I didn't realize that was talking down. You know? And so I will go, it's because you use this word. I understand me. I understand, oh, it is that word. And so in that moment, when I'm being triggered, I'll say, next time, can you not use this word? And he's like, and he'll say to me, all right, what word would you like me to use? I'm like, use this word. It actually doesn't trigger me. And so we get so down to the nitty gritty about that. But it all comes to understanding your own triggers, how to communicate your triggers without judgment, and then going back to testing your partner, see if they are willing and they're working on helping you work around your triggers. But I definitely, to me, the triggers are mine, they're not his. So while he should be a part of helping not trigger me, I own that. I say if I'm being still triggered, it's not his fault. It's still something that I'm working on that I have to get over. Now, in the moment of being triggered, if you find yourself super emotional and you're the type of person that just explodes, come up with a game plan. Kind of like what I was saying on the date where I had that Post-it note and the music. I have a game plan. I know many times when me and my husband start arguing, he's the person that just wants to have it out. Like, no, let's keep talking. I know I get to a point where I can't hear him anymore. And again, going back to assessment, I know that about myself. So I have said to him, next time we get heated, I'm going to tell you I'm going to walk away. Now, in me telling you I'm going to walk away, and I almost like give a dictionary definition of what that means when I walk away. Babe, when I walk away, that doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. That doesn't mean that I don't respect you. That doesn't mean that I don't want to hear your opinion. It means that I need to calm down so that I can then come back to the discussion with clarity and with ease. But he used to see me walking away as a sign of disrespect. So it's just, we just have a different way of looking at things. But once you were able to talk about it, now he says to me, do you need to walk away? Like we've gotten to that point now where he can say that.
That's incredible. Yeah. So this is the level of communication that you two have is just like astounding. Yeah.
Yeah. It's intense. And again, going back to, are you willing to put in that amount of time and effort? And are you willing to, like, I heard a quote once, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, if you want a great relationship and you're stuck in a relationship and you're not quite sure, if you want it, okay, you either are going to accept that your relationship's always going to be flawed. You either say, I'm willing to do what it's going to take to get over it, or I'm going to split. Now, if you split and you find another partner, it's not going to be any easier. You still are going to have to overcome issues and problems. So the one thing Tom and I said when we realized, oh, no relationship is ever perfect, we literally just looked at it and said, okay, we know it's going to have, relationships are going to take work. Do we commit to each other that you're worth the work? And that was part of like our marriage, right? Like, yes, relationships aren't going to be easy. It's going to take work, but you're the one I want to do the work with.
Right, right. Amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining me today. I mean, I learned so much from our conversation. I'm sure all the daters out there have learned so much. Merry Christmas, since you
Thank
love
you.
Christmas so much. Yeah, and happy holidays to everyone. Thank you so
Can,
much for
can I just
joining
say,
me. Yes,
can I say one thing, sweetie? If anyone, we actually recently released a relationship theory
yes.
YouTube channel. So if people want more information on relationships, it's literally me and my husband. It's like if you want to be a fly on the wall and actually hear how we talk to each other, we've done like themed episodes, we've cut them up. And so it's literally me and my husband sitting on the sofa. Sometimes we argue, sometimes we debate, sometimes we push each other. But if you want to know how we actually handle it, go over to YouTube Relationship Theory and check out all that content, because it's a lot more there.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I'm sorry, I was going to mention this because I listen to relationship theory as a podcast actually, but there's a YouTube channel also, and it is so to the point, really short, and like Lisa mentioned, it's like very themed, so you can choose a topic that you want. I find it so informative, so please go and check it out. Are there any other channels or methods that they could use to keep in touch with you or they can check out?
If they want to follow me on my day-to-day, it's Instagram at lisabilyeu. And then I also do incredible interviews with women, and that's on YouTube, Women of Impact. Or if you like podcasts, it's Women of Impact. So you've got relationship theory for relationship stuff, and then you've got Women of Impact for just like no BS. What does it actually take to be a freaking badass and own who you are? So yeah.
Amazing. I listened to that as well. And guys, it's incredible. So please tune in.
Oh,
Thank you so
girl.
much, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, my dear one.
Happy
Take
holidays.
care.
Thank you,
Happy
everyone.
holidays, sweetie. Bye.
Bye bye.